I'm Dana Denha, and you're watching FYI. In Washtenaw County, you probably noticed quite a few aircrafts overhead, and that's due to the airport that's resided in our community since the 1930s. Watch as the Ann Arbor Airport celebrated our area in flight in 2018.
Sundays are usually brunch days, but instead of having that meal at a restaurant, how about at the Ann Arbor Airport during their pancake breakfast?
There is pancakes, and then outside people brought in some airplanes, some older airplanes. Then we got a couple of gyrocopters.
People can come out and meet people from the airport and see what the airport is from the inside of the fence.
Once the dishes were done, people could get up close and personal with one-of-a-kind aircrafts.
The Experimental Aircraft Association was originally founded to support pilots who build their own airplanes and fly them. And we've got a couple airplanes like that here today, but we've also got regular production airplanes, and our EAA members have brought out everything from a vintage Stearman biplane, which was a trainer in World War II, all the way up to some more modern light sport aircraft.
I like watching all of the people come together, and especially watch the kids play with the airplanes, because I think it's really fun to get little kids involved in aviation.
As a pilot, myself, I've been around it my whole life, and a lot of people, I think they see an airplane and think, wow, I wonder what it's like to be a pilot. And it's a lot more achievable than I think a lot of people think. It's a little different from driving a car, but it provides a tremendous amount of freedom, and it's a very exhilarating experience.
Stay tuned, and we'll be back with more in exactly 30 seconds. It's recommended by any doctor to get the proper amount of exercise in your daily routine. But it can be daunting to find an activity that's fun and fitness friendly. Now people all over the area are getting moving with a racket and ball.
Pickleball may be a term many of us have never heard, but the sport originated more than 50 years ago.
Pickleball, it's a fantastically fun sport. It's sort of a combination of tennis and ping pong.
Some aspects of the game may seem similar to tennis, but the differences are making this pastime grow in popularity.
It's just a drop-in thing. There's no rules on who can or can't come. If players show up who we don't even know, we rotate them in. And that just means you get to play with everybody, and nobody dominates everything, and everybody gets a chance to meet up with other people.
Pickleball is typically played in doubles.
Having these facilities like here or like Leslie Park in Ann Arbor, it's a beautiful place to spend your morning. You're with a bunch of friends, you're doing something that's competitive but not so competitive that it's a big problem if you lose a game. Oh, she keeps on the tape. It's a lot of fun. Come out and try it out, and you'll meet lots of interesting people, and hopefully you'll be hooked for life.
There's no better way to celebrate America's independence than watching bright lights bursting in the air. Before you put on your own fireworks display, there's some pertinent safety information. Learn more about fireworks safety and laws in this month's City Roundup in 60.
Hi there, Mike Kennedy, Fire Chief, Ann Arbor Fire Department, here to talk about fireworks safety for the upcoming holiday. Fireworks in the city of Ann Arbor can only be shot off on July 3rd, 4th, and 5th between 8 a.m. and midnight on those 3 days. Fireworks are not allowed to be displayed on city parks, on city right-of-way, or city streets. And you have to have permission from any property owner that you're going to set them off at. You are responsible for any damage or fires that's caused by fireworks, and we always recommend that the safest fireworks are those that you go and see by a professional display at a safe distance. The July 4th holiday is the #1 day of the year for ER visits, and a lot of that is attributable to fireworks. So we hope everyone has a happy and safe July 4th holiday. If you're going to see fireworks, please go to a professional display. Thank you.
June 19th, 1865 is a day that changed America. It's a day that should be celebrated for liberation, freedom, jubilee. Juneteenth is when the Emancipation Proclamation was officially recognized by the entire country. Slaves were finally freed, but they still weren't free. African Americans continue to fight for their rights to this day. And if you keep up with the headlines, it's more evident than ever. Joining me is William Hampton, president of the Ann Arbor NAACP. Welcome back to the show, William.
Well, first of all, Dana, thank you so much for having me. And your comments are absolutely right on point. I guess I would have used enslavement as opposed to slavery, but either one of them works.
Yeah, and I know that's like one of those things today too, where you want to say things the right way. You don't want to make people feel uncomfortable.
Sensitive, caring people like yourself want to say things the right way. But other people that I talk to say to me, that's too politically correct. How come I can't talk the way I want to talk and the way I've always talked?
Yeah, and another interesting conversation that I've heard people talk about is, like saying that someone's Black or African American. And I think it really depends on, and I use the word African American in my intro, but I really think it honestly depends on where you're from.
It's based on where you're from, based on how old you are. It's based on how you've been socialized.
Mm-hmm.
And one good thing about interacting with people, in my opinion, is that we should all be willing to value differences.
I agree with that. And I think that one of the biggest ways we can value people's differences is by listening to them.
That's absolutely right. You must have read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
No, I have not.
Habit 5 says exactly what you said in a different way. It says, seek first to understand and then to be understood. And translation, that means be a good listener first.
I've mentioned this on this show before that I don't think many people realize how important listening is to people, because if you don't listen, then you don't learn.
Absolutely. None of us know everything, right?
No, and we can always learn more. I
Absolutely.
can look back at myself and be like, I was naive then. I didn't know things that I wish I did today.
Well, I commonly use terms like he got gypped, Dutch treat, Indian giver. All of those terms are offensive to folks.
Yeah.
And I learned from having people tell me along the way that's offensive to me.
And I think I agree. Like I grew up and there were certain terms that were normalized at the time, but that now if you said them, people would very much be offended. And this is that learning aspect of it, where instead of saying, when we were young, it's okay to use terms like Indian giver or whatever it might be. We now know that it's not okay to say those things, so we're not going to say them anymore.
But it's not only not okay to say it, it's also an inaccurate statement. It implies that the Native Americans gave away their land and then wanted to take it back. That's simply not true.
It's not. And this is part of the problem that we discussed too. It's like, this is not things that we necessarily talk about in school, in history, when we talk about the history of America. And even I feel like when we talk about Juneteenth, we don't talk about it enough. We don't talk about what it means. And I want to know what it means to you, William. I mean, you've been celebrating, you've been making sure that Juneteenth is something to celebrate year after year in this area.
Well, me and a lot of other people. I don't want to make it seem like it's all me, because it's not. Collaboration is always better than competition, right? Juneteenth is very important to me because July 4th is actually a huge celebration in America. But when July 4th occurred, that was almost 90 years before the Emancipation Proclamation. And even after the Emancipation Proclamation, we were still not free. In some ways, we're still not free right now. In fact, one of the questions that came up during the meeting today that I wanted to speak to, but I thought I might offend somebody, said there were a lot of poor people in the South who didn't own slaves and had no interest in slavery. And why are they being ostracized? Because they lived in the South.
Hmm.
Well, the answer is, even if you didn't own slaves, you profited by cotton, which was a major market in the South. The other part is, as Lyndon Johnson said, even if you're the poorest of white people, it's somewhat of a feel-good experience if you can feel better than somebody.
And isn't
And
that just how society is, right?
it
And you're
is.
always, you're better off if you're better than somebody else, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And to me, that's simply wrong-headed thinking. Because, in order for us to survive in the world, we got to find some common ground. We have to find a way to get along with everybody and have ourselves be easier to get along with.
It's that idea of why carry hate in your heart,
But people
right?
do, and that's unfortunate.
It is, it's very unfortunate. And and I think these people that really carry around this hatred would, if they learned a different way, would feel much lighter in their life, because carrying hate is a heavy load.
It is, and I might be mad at you, and you have no idea I'm mad at you. So am I hurting you by that? No, I'm hurting myself.
Hmm. Exactly.
Yep.
And I think we've all experienced that sort of where someone has feelings towards us that we don't know about, and then you're like, what?
Absolutely.
Like
Dana, somewhere down in Texas, which is where I'm from, African American people, uh, people in general, and African American people in particular, are preparing for Juneteenth. It's a big celebration there. There is preparation for parades. There's preparations for drive-through decorated cars. There's preparations for having food gatherings. There's preparations for church activities. There's preparations for just being happy. And when I came to Michigan, there wasn't much of a celebration for Juneteenth. And I'm not the person that's responsible for that. I'm not going to try to make that claim, but I will say this. It makes me feel good that 47 states in the United States of America celebrate Juneteenth in some kind of manner. And that the city of Ann Arbor proclaimed on the 17th of May, which is also a historic date in African American history, they proclaimed Juneteenth as a paid legal holiday in the city of Ann Arbor. I'm so happy about that.
well, this is this is one of my questions. Were you involved in the process at all? How did this actually come about? It's so amazing. I'm so excited about it. It's about time.
Well, thank you, Dana. Like I say, I don't ever want to say I'm responsible for anything, but I will say that I did play a role, and so did a whole lot of other folks.
I'm sure this
Uh,
took a lot of time and effort to
it
make
did.
the wheels turn and make this actually happen.
Well, City Council voted unanimously in support of that resolution. City Council also had every single member of City Council as a co-sponsor. But I spoke at City Council that night via Zoom, and my feelings at that time was the same way I felt about Chauvin trial. I felt only cautiously optimistic. Not that Ann Arbor is a prototype of the United States of America, but being an African American male, I've been disappointed so many times. I was disappointed with the George Zimmerman case, 17-year-old boy,
Rightfully so, yeah.
26 years old now. And I heard that George Zimmerman's GoFundMe page is still earning money for him.
It's the same as Kyle Rittenhouse, who went into that march and shot those people, and then celebrity Ricky Schroeder is bailing him out of jail. It makes absolutely no sense. Why are you siding with the bad guy? I think it's
Well,
pretty evident that there's a good and a bad in these situations.
well, you know what? I'm disappointed with America sometimes. I was disappointed with the 14 states that have some kind of voter suppression legislation pending right now. But I guess I was most disappointed by the Congress of the United States of America not having an investigation of what happened on January 6th. I mean, I don't see some of those same people that voted not to have that were scared for their lives during that insurrection and stated so publicly. And I just don't understand that. To me, it is opportunistic and political to take that approach. And I am disappointed in our American system right now.
Well, and I think that whole situation is obviously the definition of what we call white privilege.
Well, there's a guy named Tim Scott who's not white, who voted for it not to happen too. There's a guy named Clarence Thomas, whose wife helped fund some of the travelers to the insurrection. So the term white privilege is a real term, but I think that, and I think that racism is alive and well, but I also think that there's some people who look like me who just don't seem to get it.
I agree. I think that's right. And it's shocking. It's really shocking when that happens and you meet someone and you hear their story and it just doesn't resonate. It makes no sense.
Yep, I agree.
We're talking about this year's Juneteenth, which is coming up pretty soon. What do we have on the agenda this year?
We're going to start the activities with a march from Fuller Park to Wheeler Park, which is about a mile. We have some new partners this year. We have the University of Michigan as a partner this year. In fact, the University of Michigan is going to have what they call the first 21st century symposium on Juneteenth. That's going to start on the 14th and end on the 18th. And they will be joining us in the march on Saturday morning.
So then after the march, you guys are going to Wheeler Park. Is there some sort of celebration happening then?
Well, we're going to have a lesser celebration at Wheeler Park than we usually have. We're going to have a few vendors there trying to help us to evaluate the present situation in America. Our virtual program starts about 1 o'clock approximately. And we're going to start that off with the Black National Anthem, which we do every year. Well, we used to do it every year at our Freedom Fund dinner. Then we're going to have the invocation by our chaplain. And after that, we're going to have a welcoming and reading of the resolution by Mayor Christopher Taylor. Then we'll have the meaning of Juneteenth, and I will be doing that. And then the next one is something unique that we're going to try this year. The Ann Arbor NAACP's primary focus is the youth of this community. Okay, because the youth is cliche-ish, right? But the youth of our community are our future. So we're going to have what we call the NAACP retrospective. And we have a woman who lives in Washington, D.C., but she was the granddaughter of the oldest and longest serving member of the NAACP that I personally knew. And her name was Mrs. Joseph Moon. Mrs. Joseph Moon was the first African-American female department head in the city of Ann Arbor back in the 60s. She was a woman who wore high-heel shoes into her 90s. She was a woman who you didn't have to ask for her opinion to get it. And she was a major mentor for me. She used to use the term pretty people. And when she used the term pretty people, she was talking about African-Americans. And she was a dynamo. I heard her say one time that town hall meetings are a feel-good experience. But that quickly fades and nothing else happens. And she was absolutely right. She was absolutely right. And she died a few years ago. So her granddaughter is going to be speaking on her behalf at the meeting. She was my mentor. She was my friend, and I miss her a lot.
And you're going to keep her legacy alive.
Our younger member is also going to speak. She's 7 years old. and she's going to be talking about what Juneteenth means to me, what the NAACP means to me. Then we're going to have the presentation of our 2 scholarships. We're going to have our political action people talk about next steps. Then we have a presentation by the League of Women Voters. We're going to try to have a representative from each one of the Divine Nine. And the Divine Nine are the African American fraternities and sorority. And we now have a vice president who was from one of those. And they're going to be talking about who they are and what they are doing in this community.
Yeah, they do a lot for the community, really. They're
They do.
very passionate about giving back.
They are. I'm part of them.
Oh, you were in the Divine Nine.
Yeah, I'm Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, which is the oldest Greek letter fraternal organization in the history of America.
You say it's cliche, the children are our future, but I really do think what we're doing is aiming towards the future, a future where we don't use terms that people are offended by, and everyone gets paid the same amount for the work that they do. You know, a place where it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is or where you were born or your accent or anything like that. So, you know, what do you see for the future? What do you want for the future, William?
Well, my wife says I'm a romantically idealistic person. So what I have viewed in the past about how fast we were going to move forward hasn't happened quite like that. I'm old enough to remember when Sam Cooke put out his song back in the 60s, and the name of it was A Change Is Gonna Come. I'm old enough to remember when Martin Luther King's birthday was a fight to get it acknowledged as a United States holiday. I'm old enough to remember when there was a fight to get the MLK Memorial in Washington, D.C. I'm old enough to remember when Rodney King got beat up really bad by California police officers and they were acquitted. Even though it was on tape, they were acquitted by a jury of their peers. Okay, and some of that same stuff is happening right now, and part of it is because of qualified immunity. Qualified immunity is basically a law that was put in place in 1871, back when the primary purpose of police officers was to make the freed Black people remain in check. That was the original purpose of police in America. And qualified immunity was put in place so it was hard to prosecute a person who had victimized a person of color. And it's time for that to be reviewed and possibly eliminated, in my opinion. I say that almost every time I speak.
Yeah.
Qualified immunity needs to be re-examined.
Why should we all be a part of Juneteenth?
We should all be part of Juneteenth is because Juneteenth is an American holiday. It's not just an African American holiday. I mean, in order for us to be successful in our pursuit of happiness in the United States of America, we're going to need people to join together and work together to bring about change. And, you know, when I was a kid in school down in Texas, the Civil War was known as the War of Northern Aggression. Okay, and lots of folks were condemning the so-called suffragist people, condemning them because they said they don't know their place. You know, and every time there was a Black person on television when I was a kid, all the neighbors knew it was a Black person on television because there was not many times that we got to be on television because we didn't control that narrative. And hopefully some of that is gradually changing. I wish it was changing faster, but the key is, and I say this all the time, sustainability. We need to be thinking about making this world better for everybody, not just for the elite few, but for everybody. And to you, Dana, I want to say that I do recognize the fact that you as a woman have been marginalized and objectified at some point in your life. I do know that. And I do know that when the women suffragist people were marching and getting beat up, that Woodrow Wilson, who was the president at the time and sick, he was laughing at it and basically saying this won't ever happen, but it did. So unless we have people who are willing to stay in the process long enough for us to get success, success won't ever happen.
And I think that's that question that you hear over and over again now. What can we do to help? You know, what can we do to help?
It surprised me, and I do believe this to be true, but it surprised me that lots of people, when they saw the George Floyd incident, they said they didn't realize things like that was happening. But if you're an African American, you know that's been happening for a long time.
I mean, I think I was obviously aware that it was happening, but I think it was just so jarring to see it. Do you know what I mean? The actual,
I do
like,
know, but why wasn't Rodney King's?
I remember I was a kid, but I actually do remember Rodney King. I remember all of that.
That was in the early 90s, Dana. You weren't even born yet.
I was 10.
Okay.
So I was a kid, and I remember doing in elementary school, we actually talked about the case and stuff. So I really do remember that case well. But yeah, I think it's that thing. And you mentioned, I'm a woman, and that I've suffered too. And then it makes it, honestly, I could tear up right now thinking about being a Black woman in America and all the stuff that they have to deal with, because it's hard being a woman. It's hard being Black. And so to me, it's just so like no one's life should have to be that hard.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And Dana and William Hampton is going to bring about change.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's bring about that change. Thank you so much.
Let's make that commitment.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it, William. And I want you to contact me anytime you need to talk, because I'm here. I'm here to help you.
You know what? A lot of people say that, but when you say it, I know that's true.
It is true.
I know that to be true. Thank you so much, Dana.
Thank you.
And I know this has nothing to do with Juneteenth, but it bothers me. It bothers me when people came on the 25th of May, a few days ago, to acknowledge George Floyd, that gunshots rang out at that peaceful gathering. That's just not right.
No, it's not at all. It's supposed to be anti-violence, right?
There you go. There you go.
Well, thank you, William. It's very enlightening to talk to you as well.
Well, it's always good to talk to you, Dana. Do me one more favor.
Yes.
Stay safe.
You too.
All righty.
For more on this and other programs, visit a2gov.org/CTN. Visit youtube.com/CTN Ann Arbor to see all that we have to offer. And remember to like, subscribe, and ring that notification. Thanks for watching, and tune in next time to FYI.